Govinda, Govinda. Thank you. We good? Chant Om together. Om Mangalam Gurudevaya Devye Matriksha Mangalam Mangalam Bhakta Brindebhyo Sarvalokaya Mangalam Om Stapakaya Chidharmasya Sarvadharma Sarupine Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Mangalam Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharam Ajamam Ashmarachara Prayantam Vande Gurum Paramparam Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Gururevo Param Brahman Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Ganesha Sharada Gurubhyo Namaha Jai Ma Jai Ma. So continuing our discussions of the 1,000 names of Kālī, Kālī Sahasranāma. Last week we did verse 22, and I'll read the verse just so for context. Gita Priya Vadyarata Preta Nritya Parayana Chaturbhuja Dashabhuja Ashtadasha Bhuja Tata Gita Priya, she who loves singing and song or chanting. Vajrata, she who is extremely pleased by music, instrumental music. Preta Nritya Parayana, this was fun. She who is the object of the dance of ghosts and corpses. It's always a good one. That was fun. And then the three names, Chaturbhuja, Dashabhuja, and Ashtadasha Bhuja. She who has 4 arms, she who has 10 arms, she who has 18 arms. I kept saying, in the video I was watching, I kept saying 16 just by accident, but it's supposed to be 8 arms. Well, she has 16 arms too. There's forms like that too, but she has 18 arms in this particular form. So I read those again because even though in a certain sense these are a next cluster of names, but they're not unrelated, because some of the names here described are mentioned names of goddesses that have 4 arms, that have 10 arms, that have 16 arms, or 8. See, I did it again, 18 arms, right? So it could be setting up. We talked generally about what multiple arms could mean and different ways of interpreting it symbolically and the like. I'd reach back, but I think I'd screw my neck. Thank you. Thank you. Kātyāyanī. So verse 20. Those are names 154 through 159. Now we'll start with 160 in verse 23. Kātyāyanī Jagan-mātā Jagatāṁ parameśvarī jagad-bandhur-jagad-dhātri Jagadānanda-kāriṇī. So these are very nice. This is how many names? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 names. Another 6 names, which is good. I think we maybe actually get through the 6 names. We'll see. Kātyāyanī. And as I was thinking these names, a bhajan kept coming to my mind from our Suman, Sargaman Suman, Breath Big Puja. He had one song, Kātyāyanī, Jaya Kātyāyanī. It's stuck in my, it's very, very catchy. It's his most catchy song. They know so many songs. There's nobody I don't know. They printed books of songs that they themselves have written. But this is, I always ask, do the Kātyāyanī song. It's very, very catchy. Because you don't hear many like bhajans just to Goddess Kātyāyanī, right? One of our Navadurgas, Kātyāyanī, is listed in the Navadurga series. Let me find here. The sixth Durga. Before Kālāratri, Kātyāyanī, Kālāratri, that's so she's also there. And of course, in this iconographic form, she has a particular. She rides a lion. She has 4 arms holding various different things, right? But there's scriptural references to her besides that, so we can go a little bit because it's a very specific name. Kātyāyanī is she who is of the. It's usually translated as a daughter of Kātyāyana, right? So we have to think who's Kātyāyana. So that's one thing. The daughter of Kātyāyana would be Kātyāyanī. We could say it like that. A better way of saying it, who's Kātyāyana? Kātyāyana is not a name. Also, Katya is the name of a lineage, right? So or we would say like a last name, like I'm from the Alvarado or Saraswati clan or something like that, something like that. And so Kātyāyana Rishi is a Rishi who was born in the Katya or Kata, actually not Katya, Kata lineage. And so these are just ancient families, lineages that go back. And so Kātyāyana Rishi was a famous Rishi of that. And as per the story, he did tremendous tapasya in order to he wanted the Divine Mother Durga to be born as his daughter. Right, and so these are classical stories, and after much tapasya, he had a vision of Mother Durga saying, "I should be born as your daughter," and so she was. The story goes, she was born as a daughter of a rishi. So she grew up in a rishi in ashram, the forest ashram of Kātyāyanī Rishi, and must be his wife. The name I don't remember if her name is given. Maybe her wife would be Kātyāyanī, because Kātyāyanī could also be the wife of Kātyāyana. It's a female of the Kātyāyana Katya clan. So that's okay. So to me that's already quite fascinating. And you have God, the supreme goddess, here described as with 1,000 names and thousand lists of 1,000 names describing the qualities of the supreme goddess. One of is she who's born in particular as somebody's daughter. Right, so that's a very interesting. That already is a big point that the goddess can be born, right? And of course, in the Chandi, when Mahamaya is mentioned to Surata and Samari, they ask, "Tell me about her avatars. Tell me about what are her incarnations, what are her births, right?" But there it does not mention specific like she's born in such and such family. Although at the end of the hymn it does mention I'll be born a bunch of times, or manifest a bunch of times. Usually just means, she manifested in order to kill Mahishasura. She manifested, in that story, he tells the story of how she killed Mahishasura, how she killed and destroyed Shumba and Nishumba, how she helped Brahma by waking up Vishnu. The story of the 3 main stories of the Chandi. Is her avatars or her births in a certain sense, right? But they don't really mention her births. They just mention her manifestations, right? But this story is about her literal birth. She's born as somebody's daughter, right? And so it makes you, of course, we can take it specifically that, maybe she's been born, right, in a human form. And of course, Sri Ramakrishna said a very beautifully controversial statement, Shakta statement that Swami Ambikananda has found. That the avatar is only of Shakti, or Shakti itself is the only one that incarnates. It's Shakti that incarnates, right? So this is generally, you could say, that's the energy, because but like Brahman can incarnate. That's a static being. It's a manifestation part. But he probably means it a little bit more specifically. It's like it's the Adya Shakti, right? That's the incarnation. So whenever all the incarnations of God are incarnations of the Divine Mother, all manifestations of God, all God as movement, as manifestation, is Shakti, right? That is the Divine Mother, in Sri Ramakrishna's description, right? So it's that Kātyāyanī is an example of literally God, the goddess or God or Brahman manifesting, incarnating all his Sorry, I said his. Oh my goodness, forgive me, Mom. Especially all her manifestation. mistake like that, our position in the next life may not be is a little insecure. We'd be very careful. All her manifestations, so are her. So Kātyāyanī is one of those type of thing. So, but it's also, of course, that means according to Sri Ramakrishna, Krishna is incarnation of Adyashakti. Rama is an incarnation of Adyashakti, right? And Shingadeva is an incarnation of Adyashakti, right? And I can demonstrate that even from the text. Right, and especially from the Shakta text, but even from the Puranas, there's evidence of this type of thinking, right? But she's not just born as Krishna and Rama and Shingadev and Varaha and Matsya and Buddha, whatever, and any of the long list. She's also born as she takes female incarnations, not just male incarnations. I think that's Kātyāyanī Rishi. I think that's an important point. So so people say, why are all the avatars male? Well, usually the tradition of avatars is that of it's a Vaishnava form. I mean, that's developed in the Vaishnava, where Vishnu is the one, and also Vishnu of the Trimurtis. Brahma doesn't incarnate, and Shiva generally doesn't incarnate. Vishnu is the one who incarnates. That's his job to maintain, and right. So it's naturally all the incarnations of Vishnu, but not all incarnations of Vishnu are also masculine. There's Mohini; he's taken female forms, right? At least a female form, more than that actually if we go into the text. But that's not that's okay, and that's one explanation why all the avatars are male, because they're incarnations of a male god, usually to fight something. But we have the Chandi, right? That not all manifestations of the divine are masculine, right? If most of the famous incarnations, avatars of the divine are masculine, that's because of tradition. Right, but not all the manifestations of the divine are masculine. That's a point. But she also does incarnate. That's the point. So the story, we don't want to go too much into the story. I mean, we can go into the story, but let me glance the story real quick. I wrote a few notes. So she promised I reincarnate as your daughter. Meanwhile, right? So Kātyāyanī Rishi, it's interesting. Kātyāyanī Rishi was doing tapasya in order to get the goddess as his daughter, right? That's a very big point. Meanwhile, if we were to stand the story, it is connected to the Chandi, right? Meanwhile, there was another demon named Mahishasura, and he was doing tapasya to please Lord Brahma, right? In order and his boon was to become immortal, right? Of course, we all know you can't become immortal. Nothing that's born can live forever. So he said, "Oh, I'll get the." We've done this. We've told this story many times, but this is a classic demon story. Then give me a boon that I can't be killed by. Actually, he can't be killed by any man. Right, that of course we know the foolishness of the thing. Right, he mentioned all kinds of things, but he forgot to mention maybe the possibility that a woman can kill him. Right, and so similarly, this answering the prayer of Kātyāyanī Rishi to be born as his loving daughter and the object of his affection. Right, to have the divine mother, the mother of the universe as his daughter. Right, such a unique prayer, right? The mother as his daughter, the goddess as his child. He was answering her prayer. Simultaneously, he was answering the unspoken prayer of Mahishasura, right? That nobody can kill him except really by not listing a woman as a possibility of somebody killing him, his death at the hands of a female's hands. All 10 of them, not just at a hand of the female's hands. He was actually, in a certain way, you could say he's actually praying to be killed by a female. Because actually, when you're not going to be killed by this, or this, then you are going to be killed by something not listed, right? So actually, her manifestation as a daughter of Kātyāyanī Rishi is also her incarnation to kill Mahishasura. Right, so when this is not mentioned in the Chandi, this is in other auxiliary Puranic stories that are told around the story of Mahishasura. So when we know the story of Mahishasura, the gods, when all the gods went to, I'm going to get this right, I think they all went to Brahma first, Right? No, they went to Vishnu first, and then Vishnu along with Vishnu they all went to Shiva, and then they had a big meeting, the 33 gods, and they got very upset, and they said the anger came from their, that story we've talked about many, where they create you have to be careful how to use the language, but they seem to create a goddess that's the combined power of all the gods to go fight Mahishasura. We know that story, right? I think I got that right. So another version of the story, when they went to Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, they said, well, it seems like the only thing I can kill. They got angry, but how do we have to think how to do this? The only way that we can that the Mahisha can be killed is by the goddess, by the Devi herself, right? And that just happens to be right now. She's already been incarnated as a daughter of Kātyāyanī Rishi, right? This is the part that's not in the Chandi, right? Or you could say, the Chandi didn't mention it or hadn't been written yet. It could be, the story has developed since that time, as these ancient goddesses merge and the stories get retold and different aspects of the stories and versions of the stories are told. But this is very interesting. So then they go to some stories. They go to the and they find her. Says, please help us, right? And then she manifests as Kalagni, this tremendous fire, right? And then the story goes, they give her the various weapons, right? Whatever. Upon arrival, she assumes a glorious form wearing red garments with 10 hands, decorated with many ornaments on her many limbs. She seated in the back of a ferocious lion. Upon seeing the divine, the celestial form of Devi herself, the three devs, the Trimurti, the Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, as well as all the gods, became certain of Mahishasura's death, of his assassination, right? And then they began to bless the goddess. You can do that with their weapons, of course. That's a story where is it? Vishnu gives her his disc. Shiva gives her the trident. Varuna gives her a conch. Vayu gives her a bow. Agni gives her his dart. Indra a thunderbolt. Surya his quiver of arrows. Brahma a rosary. Kubera a mace. Kala sword. Brahma a battle axe. There's different. This is that version. In the Chandi, it's a slightly different list how she's created, but this story it's told this way, right? But the same basic idea here is like, he gives the weapon. Of course, we've given several talks on this point. That of course they're feeling they're giving her their weapons, but it's her weapon. These are her Shakti. She's Parashakti. She's their Shakti as well, right? Not as in their wife, but their essence, right? Their energy, their Shakti. So these are all her and so one version of the story, she's created by the combined power of the gods. But in this story, she's already incarnated on her own will, right? And she agrees to this, right? And by them giving her their weapons, she's really, it's their realization that the one who's been born, the one that can save them, the one that they need to please, the one they're praying to, is like the essence of Shiva is in his Trishul. These are like symbolic. These are emblematic of their power. Right, it's like we talked last week about how the different arms and weapons have emblematic, symbolic power, meaning. So, in that sense, each one of them is given their distinctive weapon, their distinctive, a distinctive quality, right? Shiva without a Trishul is not Shiva; it's just like a guy, like the Trishul. So you make a statue. As soon as you put a Trishul on somebody, said, "Oh, it must be Shiva." You put a flute. You make any statue with a flute, you say, "Oh, it must be Krishna," right? This is like the distinctive feature. Right, that makes it distinctive. So she is the distinct. That's another point. We'll maybe go into that. That she is the distinctive feature of a universal. She's a universal principle and the distinctive feature that makes the universal. Specific example. Anyway, this is my problem with theological thinking. I'm thinking along these generals and particulars as we've been discussing the last few days. Kātyāyanī. My problem, my pages are not numbered. So, in the story I just told, she has 10. She shows with 10 arms, right? And so in the previous verse, this is Dasha Bhuja. She's mentioned as having 10 arms, right? So you can see she's talking in general, but she's now mentioning the different goddesses. They have their own stories, their own origin myths, their own leelas, right? Their own cults, their own pujas, their own holy days, right? But it's by saying Kālī has 10 arms, Kālī has 4 arms, because Kātyāyanī also has 4 arms. In the form we worship her, she has 4 arms, right? And in her forearms, and that in this form that we worship as part of as the Nava Durgas, she has a lotus flower and a sword in her left hands, and keeps her right hands in abaya and bharata, like Kālī, like Ma, and these mudras, right? So she has a very specific form. She has 4 arms, and showing these 4 weapons, and she has 10 arms. As Mahishasura, and we worship Mahish. Then we think Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini. We don't mention Kātyāyanī, right? It's a different thing. But actually, this is the same god with 10 arms, with 4 arms, who was born as a daughter of Kātyāyanī Rishi, who manifests in order to kill Mahishasura, like that. I was looking. I thought I had written. I do have memory. In the I didn't. I thought I written down, but from writings we did on the Navadurgas, there was something about where, like, I believe, if you count, right, she's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So which chakra would that make her? Right, that's here, right? So she in the body as a yogi, she rules Agni Chakra. Right, and what I was forgetting, she has a certain planet, a certain element, and there's when we described Navadurgas, we described her that way, right? And the benefits of worshiping her, I think it gives Agni Chakra. I think if I remember properly from memory, she blesses with rulership, with control, overcoming obstacles, these type of things you'd imagine in the story. Anyways, Kātyāyanī. Oh, another point, Kātyāyanī is mentioned. And there's the most popular story of goddess Kātyāyanī is in Srimad Bhagavatam, right? And that's the gopis worship Kātyāyanī, right? They worship Kātyāyanī at the gopi. The story where the gopis are bathing, right? And but they bathe after doing puja as part of the vrat of Kātyāyanī puja. They're worshiping goddess Kātyāyanī, and in the Ajastotram, there's a word Kātyāyanī. There's a line about Kātyāyanī who's in Vraj, right? You know the line? What is it? Vraje Kātyāyanī para. In Vraj, in Vrindavan, in that land of Vraj, she is Kātyāyanī, the supreme one, right? So that's in the Adhyastotra, it mentions the goddess in various lands. Bangladeshe, Bhadrakalicha, right? And in the land of Bengal, she's Kālī. I think it's 3 times it mentions. It goes back to that. Right? So definitely in Bengal, she's worshipped as Kālī. In Vrindavan, in Vraj, she's Kātyāyanī, right? And so even now there is a Shakti Pitam, Kātyāyanī Shakti Pitam. I'm not sure if Kātyāyanī is one of the 50. Kātyāyanī Shakti Pitam is one of the 50 Shakti Pitams. Whether that's the form of Ma that fell. In Vraj, I'm not sure if that's the case. And I think the modern temple of Kātyāyanī, the Kātyāyanī Shakti Pitam, I just said it, is a modern temple. It was done by a recent sage who I think this is the Shakti Pitam, and but it is there. I've never been there. I want to go. I've been told many times. I think Madhuri has been there, but I have not been there. The Shakti Pitam of Vrindavan. So. But the point is that at the time of the Bhagavatam, or the time when the story of the Bhagavatam is being told, she is there's a local tradition of Kātyāyanī worship and she's worshipped specifically by unmarried girls in order to get a good husband. This is the idea, as the story goes. So in the story, the way it's told, they did Kātyāyanī, they vowed, they fasted, and they vowed, and they took ritual bath. And as they're bathing ritually, like they're bathing without clothes. And their prayers were, as a story, because the story is focused, everything is focused on Krishna. right, is that they want Krishna as their husband, right? And the story is not carefully told, because many of the gopis are married. These are supposedly the unmarried gopis, not all the gopis, because these are people. The Kātyāyanī puja is for unmarried girls to pray for. And so the story goes that Krishna stole their clothing. We all know the story, right? And many levels of interpretation of that story about transcending body consciousness and shame. And there's many ways you can read the story. This is the way we generally read it, the way stories are generally told. I discovered, kind of in a weird research I was doing many years ago. I thought about looking it up today, but I didn't want to spend 20 minutes on YouTube trying to find a video that somebody, and I didn't know what I was going to look for. As a sannyasi, you can't click on anything, and because it was the story. Because the point is that this is an ancient tradition. There is a tradition, right? Of it's an I think it may have been Chinese or Japanese or Korean. It was one of these type of anthropological documentary was done in it. That's why I was trying to find a clip on it. And there was a rite is that when at a certain point when in order to become married, right? This is the thing is that the girls would go into a river, the girl that the man that this is a way of officially asking for a hand in marriage type thing. This is a ritualized thing, and the girls would go bathing in a river, right? And the boy with his boyfriends would be pushing, go ask her for a flower or something. Right, and so the boy would go. I mean, this is all ritualized, right, and arranged by the parents, and this, this type of thing. Or, and the boy would go and ask, "Oh, can I have a flower or something like that?" Right, and of course the other girls would stay, but the girl who would come out of the river a little bit and hand him a flower, go back, right, thus exposing, and you'd never do that except for the future husband, and that type of. It was like it's all playful act, and it's ritualized like that. But I found that interesting. I don't know if this is a remnant of an ancient tradition, but when I was watching, I mean, it was done tastefully, appropriate for BBC documentary or something like that. But I thought that, well, that's an interesting thing. It's almost identical. Something was coming out of a river with your girlfriends and things like that, and there seems to be a related. I was wondering whether or not there's an ancient tradition, whether an older tradition that the story is a remnant of, perhaps, but they also so the gopis worshipped Kātyāyanī, and so the worship of Kātyāyanī there is done in order to get a good husband. But it also shows that in the Bhagavatam there's worship of goddesses, right? We could chastise the gopis for not worshiping Vishnu. They should have just worshipped Vishnu or Krishna. They worshipped the goddess Kātyāyanī, Durga, right? In the Bhagavatam it's not mentioned, but in other Puranas it's mentioned, like who, what was it? Radha's husband. What's Radha's husband's name? Sorry, it's not Krishna. It's very disappointing, but it's not Krishna. Maybe no? No. Abhimanyu, something like that. Is it Abhimanyu? What is it? It shows you. Radha is like the most popular, the most approachable, the most divine, the most focused. We sing Radhe, but everybody think the husband of Radha is Krishna, obviously, right? It's not Krishna as per the story, right? But her husband, what we do know, I'm forgetting. I think it's anyway. It's embarrassed that I myself don't know. Thinking about, I should tell that story today, but his Kula Devata, his Ishta Devata or Kula Devata was Kālī. So Kālī worship was also there in Radha's family's Kula Devata. It was Nishingadev, right? That we know, right? The Nishingadev, and so even in Varshana, the birthplace of Radha, there's been unbroken Nishingadev worship for thousands of years. That's like the presiding deity. Of course, now Radha is a presiding deity, but her presiding deity, she worshipped Nishingadev, right? So anyway, it's interesting that the goddess tradition is there throughout, even if our focus has changed over time because of devotion to Krishna. Kātyāyanī, because then the next group of names all have the same word, Jagat. Jagan-mātā, Jagatāṁ, parameśvarī. Jagad-bandhur-jagad-dhātri, Jagadānanda-kāriṇī. So each name, And obviously these clusters of names often are by sound and idea. Let me get to the right page here. Kātyāyanī. So Jagan-mātā means the mother of Jagan's mother. That's the fact who this Jagan character is, right? So Jagan, Jagat, Jagata. These have So the general translation means the world, right? So Jagan-mātā means the mother of the world. That's a simple, common translation. It's the correct translation, right? Jagan-mātā. So Jagat, and Jagat. It comes from a root that means moving, right? We even like Jagra. Do we have this term like that? Something moving or shaking or Jagatāṁ? There's some word like that. I don't. My Hindi is not strong enough for it, but I know there's words like that are related to that, the moving. So another way to say is like the vibrating, moving, changing world, right? The Jagat, right? Gati, yeah, probably a similar, probably a similar word, right? So by saying, it's interesting that the word for the world, right, and then by extension the universe or creation or reality. I mean, all these we keep expanding, because when we say the world, we mean like the world means what? The earth, that's the world, right? But it also means like physical manifested existence, and we use the word localized and expanded, right? Even universe has a scientific definition, but universe means universal, means everywhere, the reality itself, not like now we have multiple universe theories and things like that, right? So it has both general, specific, and more expansive meaning. But it comes from the word movement. So it's interesting that whatever the world is, the earth, or creation, or existence, or the universe, or manifestation, all that is, right? Its definition is all that's not just all that is, it's all that's vibrating, all that's moving, right? So we can compare that to, so when you define the world as that which moves, right? What is it being defined against? That which doesn't move, right? Because it's a weird way to describe it, like it's not just like that which, even to say, existence may be defined against non-existence, I don't know, it's lots more abstract, but something moving is very much defined against something that's not moving, something that's, so in popular use, Jagat means the world, the earth, its inhabitants, the creation, existence, all the way we'd use it when we say the world. But in Vedanta, it has a very specific definition, right? Because that which moves, it's that we could say that which is manifested against that which is unmanifested. We in Shiva, in Tantra, and in Sankhya, we'd use as Purusha Pakriti type thing. So Pakriti becomes that which is vibrating, that which is moving, the stuff that's manifesting, moving, right? Or is moved or is moving, however you want to think of it, right? As different from that which is not moving, Purusha or Brahman, like that, right? In Vedanta, it becomes, Jagat becomes, in Advaita Vedanta, let's be more specific, Jagat becomes another nomenclature for Maya, right? Because we see a world of change, movement, vibration, right? But philosophically, we think we know that philosophically it's not possible, right? There can only be one reality. By definition, Brahman. If you start using the monistic reasoning, right? So this whole vibrating, changing, expressing, birth, death, all expression, all movement, the entire known world. What is it, right? So in a radical non-dualistic say, it's not, right? The fact that it's moving means it's not there. Right, because the reality is static, right? I can't say static. That's not a proper word, but there can be no parts, and therefore nothing to move against, nothing to move into, and all these problematic definitions of logic like that, right? So Jagat is seen as simply the world of. So the world is a world of experience, right? So that's another. So in Vedanta, Jagat is used very specifically, not just the world; it's the world of our experience, right?
that's up against the experiencer, right? So you have against this duality. As soon as you have the world, if you define the thing that way, just like you define the world of movement and change against that which is unmoving. So it's another way of saying that which is experienced, the world of our experience, right? Of and our experience is of multiplicity and change and movement and dynamic flow, right? But the experiencer is that is seen in certain schools of Vedanta as unmoving, unchanging, and so they have. So when we end up with there's different ways of categorizing in Vedanta, and I'm not going to give a talk on Vedanta. Finally, we get to Kālī Sahasranāma. It means we don't have to talk about Vedanta. We can talk about Tantra, but we can't. We have to talk a little bit about Vedanta from a tantric perspective. A lot of Vedanta has been talked about in America for the last 100 years. There's time for a little bit of Shaktism, so we're bringing it in. But even this name, I think, this will enrich the understanding of this cluster of names. That's why I'm spending a little time with it. So one way to categorize, and you have Brahman, right, or Atman, or self, or the absolute, and there's different all those ways of thinking, and then you have the category of Jagat, right? But there's something in between these two, or another category that arises, and that's Jiva, right? So in the sense of the individual self, you have the reality in pure Advaita, or the oversoul in a little more less absolute logical Advaita, the one being or the grounded being, and like that. And you have the world of experience, but of whose experience, right? Because in one sense, it's not God, it's not Brahman's experience. Brahman's unchanging. Of course, it can be, as part of our discussion the last few days. Maybe it is Brahman's experience, but it's our experience, right? So it's not Brahman's. The world of Brahman's experience is Jagat. It's the world of our experience. That's Jagat, right? If you're getting a little bit technical, right? And so Jeev Jagat, we use this is often the term, is like you have Brahman, the absolute, and you have Jeev Jagat. When you have an individual, that by definition, that individual has a world of experience, right? Now the question is the individual, in Vedanta we ought to hold that since there's only one, the individual has to be in some sense that one, right? And his world of experience has to also be in some sense that one, if there's only one, right? So in a really absolute school, then there is no Jiva and there is no Jagat. There's only Brahman, and why do we see it? We don't. We mistakenly think we see something like that. Tantra doesn't really hold that view, right? Sri Ramakrishna didn't like. He'd mention that view and then kind of dismiss it, right? And interestingly enough, he says, no, that Jiva and Jagat are expressions of Brahman, right? That's called Shakti, right? When the one manifests as if, or actually as, when the unchanging seems to change or changes. Maybe that's just one's a little more logically technical and the other is more experiential. Maybe it's the exact same thing, right? It becomes everything, right? Or holds everything, or like in some sense, right? Including the ones who experience everything, right? So when the one becomes many, it becomes Jeev. That's a way of saying it becomes Jeev Jagat, right? Becomes the individual and the individual's world of experience. But Tantra doesn't lose the Advaitic monistic perspective. It holds that. What's the problem? It's not that it doesn't exist. No, it does exist. The one's playing all the parts and having all the experiences. And the examples they're a little crude. I mean, we have to, but for our purposes, they give a hint. When you're asleep and you dream, what happens? You play. You. Last night I don't remember most of my dreams, but the last few days I think I've remembered some of my dreams. I think I'm back in the cave, and the cave does things to your brain. That cave has its own mystic. It's like a shamanistic underworld journey every night when you go into my cave. So I'm back in the cave. So maybe after being in the more conventional room of the outer world, but in my but you like there's all these characters. I went somewhere Mark Johnson was in my dream. We went to go visit some saint. It's like I haven't thought of him in a long time. He's like, I didn't actually experience Mark Johnson. I experienced it was myself playing that part, right? All the experiences were myself playing that part, right? So there's an example of the entire cosmology of the self, the ground of being, right? The one, it's all a unitary reality. There's only one being in my story, right? Yet I have not just myself as the observer. I have a multiplicity of selves, right? I'm assuming I'm the only one that's conscious in the story. Who knows? I don't. That's beyond my. People with more dramatic dream lives maybe experience something different. As far as I know, that's the only way it works, right? And I have a world. I have my world. It seems to be moved. Nothing's moved. Nothing's changed. Nobody's there. Yet everything was there. I mean, it was it was definitely a lot of meaning. It was a meaningful dream, right? You know, some dreams are just flotsam and jetsam of the brain, you know, experience, right? But fleshing out. But it's interesting that the example the sages give again and again, like a dream. They always say like a dream, you know, and you have to think, what did that mean? What it means that the one being experience becoming Jiva and Jagat is our daily experience. I mean, not just we don't have to dream. Maybe, I mean, we wake up and half of what I'm experiencing, I have no evidence. I'm assuming you guys are here. If there's no, unless I have strong evidence against you guys being real people, right? You know, there's no reason. But actually, most of the stuff I'm experiencing about you guys is just all my own projection, right? It's my own. It's my world. It's not, you know, it's like you may actually exist, but you exist in my world, not in the world. You know, it's like, so Jagat not just becomes the world, becomes the individual's subjective experience, right? Anyway, these are big frothy talk, as some of you would call it, this type of philosophical discussion. But these names use this words. I thought we could think what does Jagat mean. So we say Jagan-mātā. Oh, she's at the devotion. She's a mother of the world. The mother of the world. It means a mother. Mātā is the one who gives birth, right? You know, our mother is the one who gave us birth, right? Our biological mother. So Jagan-mātā, she's the biological mother of the world. I mean, she's the cause from whom we all come, not just whom we come, whom the world comes, right? Creation, you know, not just as we come from our mother, the world, or Jiv Jagat, well, not just because Jagat, there's no Jagat without Jiva. That's one of the points. Jiv Jagat, Jagat means Jiv Jagat, comes out of the mother, right? The mother, yeah, you know, comes out of the divine reality, right? So by saying whatever God is, whatever Brahman is, whatever the absolute is, whatever the divinity is, it's the one. By saying she's Jagan-mātā, she's the one who gives birth to everything, right? And so that's interesting because the mother, of course, we're in a mother tradition, you know, so we're focused on this aspect. But a mother is like, of course, we all have personal weird histories as Jiva, Jagat, and Mātā, right? But practically speaking, we know our mother, right? Actually, we know our mother almost until we're born. When we're born, then we may or may not know our mother. The shock of it, the relationship dramatically changes, right? Because before we're born, we're one with the mother, right? You know, her breathing is our breathing. Her eating is our eating, right? You know, our body is, for all intended purposes, her body still, right? And so to say, so, you know, it's a very, people who know me, I don't like meme type of things online. You know, I'm not a meme person, and I'm deeply disappointed every time I look at Facebook at everybody's stories, and as my go-to personality is disappointed with the world in general, right? But there's one story that's gone around, and maybe some of you have shared it. I'm not disappointing you for sharing it, although it's setting that I'm not overly judging. But it's about, you know, that story about like the two babies, two twins in a womb. Remember the story? It went around on Facebook for a while, and one of them tells the other one that there's a world. You know, I forget what they're talking. I forget. I even remember, it's been so long, but it's like the reality. You don't doubt the reality when you're in the womb, right? To talk about like somebody saying, I heard that there's a mother in which we exist. That we're like, there's no evidence of that. Right, you know, it's like to doubt to have a theological religious argument about the presence of your mother when you're still in the womb is a ridiculous type of thing, right? The knowledge is, it's not knowledge, it's not even experience, it's your existence, right? If you can experience it, if you're conscious of your experience, much the better. If you have knowledge of it, maybe slightly better, right? right? but in the womb, you don't have to think about who your mother is, right? She's you, right? But as soon as there's a moment of dramatic separation that came to all of us, you know, and then the relationship becomes more complicated, right? But it's still, now she is a mother in a way. She gave birth to us. She's not, you know, at one time she was us, right? And we were part of her. But now there's a sense that she's not us, right? But she's our source in some sense, right? And so many of us, you know, when we say return to the source, conscious of the source, this is what we mean. The one that generates, the one that we came from, the one that we existed in, right? So Jagan-mātā is the one that she's the cause of everything, the source of everything. But she's Jagan-mātā in the other sense also, that we never left her womb. We left our physical mother's womb at the time of birth, right? But we don't. But she's not. Our physical mother is considered a good representative of the spirit of the Divine Mother, right? Sri Ramakrishna described like that. The earthly mother is a good symbol. You know, we see aspects of the Divine Mother in our earthly mother, including our very our physical being constituted of her physical being, and of course the loving relationship that develops between mother and child, and so and the highest ideal of selfless love, which is usually seen as the mother's love, but Jagan-mātā is not just our earthly mother. She's the mother. She's the spiritual mother. So we, just like a child is one with the earthly mother in the womb, we are one with the earth, with our spirit, with the Divine Mother, was Kālī, was Parashakti. Now, I mean we're made of her being, right? So she's a mother, not just that the source, the creator, the creatrix, or like that. That's true. She's that, right? You can see the universal generator of everything, mother, and that's like mother of 10,000, the one who creates 10,000 worlds. There's names for that in Buddhism, like that. But she's like literally right now we're just like a child in the womb. We're in her womb. Our Jeev and Jagat, right, exist in the mother, right? So she's the ground. Not the ground. Ground being is a nice theological point, but she's like the substratum, the container, right? And we mentioned this many times because to me it's very important in the Devi Bhagavatam, the classic story like we read in all the Purana. The classic Puranic symbol is like Brahma. The world is created by Lord Brahma. Brahma sits on top of a lotus that comes from the navel of Vishnu. So okay, the world sources in Brahma. Brahma sources in Vishnu. Vishnu lays on the cosmic ocean. So we can keep going back and back and back. And so we know the source, the supreme reality is Vishnu. The secondary creator, demiurge, is Brahma. We can describe it like that. But the whole thing exists. Where does the question that the Devi Bhagavatam asks is, where does that ocean of milk, the causal ocean, the karana, the ocean of causation, ocean of Chira Sagara, where does it exist? Right? It exists in the womb of that is what is Jagan-mātā. That's the word given. It's in the universal mother, in the universal, the womb of the universal mother. She is, by saying Jagan-mātā, not only she gives birth in the classical sense, but we're like I said, we're more with our mother before she gives birth, right? So birth is like, we're created and now we're separate. That's fine, but the whole thing's never separate. I mean, we're still in her womb. We're still in her reality. So Jagan-mātā becomes like like Jagat is the world of experience. Jagan-mātā is the reality itself, in which the world of jivas and their world exist, right? Another thing in the Devi Bhagavatam is all that happens because in the Chandi it also you have the story of Vishnu, who's God. He gets put to sleep. He goes to sleep because we all know he goes through his cycles, and then Brahma gets attacked by a couple demons and tries to wake Vishnu up, but Vishnu is asleep. He can't wake him up, right? So what does Brahma do? Not like, hey, Vishnu. That's where you go to his ear and scream until he wakes up. That didn't work, right? Because he's not asleep by his own will in the story, right? It has a theological point, the Shakta text, so it has a theological punch to it, right? Because Vishnu's been put to sleep by Devi, as Yoga Nidra. He's given this name, the divine sleep of yoga, right? And so she has to awaken. So in that story is also told in the Devi Bhagavatam, the same type of story. So it's not only she's the womb, but she's the one doing everything. We're asleep because she's made us sleep. Where we wake up when she wakes us up. Just like in a certain sense, very much like our mothers put us to sleep. You wake them up, give them food, put them back to bed again. It's like a child, especially in the womb, we have no independence, almost no independence. After birth, we have a tiny bit of independence, right? And of course, we think as we grow older, part of growing up is thinking we're more and more independent. We get more and more our own person, less and less dependent upon our mother. We can start talking back, Then we can blame them for everything. It's great, we can develop it. It's a brilliant development we've done like that. But it all happens within her, right? And it happens by her, right? She's Jagan-mātā, right? So this is different ways of thinking of the word mata, right? Also, the word mata is an interesting thing because in many languages, of course, most of our known language, most of the languages we're associated with have a Sanskritic, Indo-European type of base. So it's not like so surprising that they all have the same. Like ma means mother in Spanish and in Hindi and in Arabic and these type in Latin and things like that, right? So ma means that, but what we say what's the word we have our alma mater and there's some basilicas that have this I'm forgetting just now but you see this word mater means mother in Latin, right, or some version of that, but also we get the word matter from it. That's interesting. And that is and in Sanskrit it comes from a sense of measurements, right? And so you can see even Jagat is movement. Matter is in a certain sense has a sense of that which measures out, and so the material is so it becomes like material, matter, mother, mata. These are related terms in related language. So you can see that. So the material, the matter of the world is also her, right? So she's the one giving birth to the material world, and she is the material world, right? So this other name we'll get to just a second, Jagadātri, will relate these two things, right? So Jagan-mātā, she's the one who gives birth to the world. What's the world? Matter, which is also mother. She's the one giving birth, and she's the one she gives birth to, because there's never in Tantra, there's Tantra celebrates and admits the world of multiplicity, but does not lose the fact there's still only one thing, both philosophically and devotionally, right? And then we'll jump into the next name here, see how they relate. Jagan-mātā, and then before we get to Jagadātri, which is one of my favorite names, there's Jagatāṁ parameśvarī, right? Jagatāṁ parameśvarī. So she's the mother of the world, mother of our world, of the world, and she is Jagatāṁ parameśvarī. She is a supreme. So parameśvarī means supreme goddess. That's a simple word. Like it. But then we have to think of Ishwari a little bit more specifically. Ishwara means the controller, right? The manager, the controller, the director. Ishwara, and Ishwara has a specific in careful theological reading. It has a very specific meaning. In general, Ishwara means controller, and so saying that it means that like a word for God. Very often, like when Sri Ramakrishna, in the gospel you say God, usually it's the translation of the word Ishwara mostly, right? Or the Bengali, what is it? It's not Ishbur. It's a different. Ishwar. Ishwar. Yeah, it's pronounced differently. But so that's what he means by. But I mean, so it means. So we would translate maybe as Lord, that the controller, a lord. But of course, Lord this is the way language transforms over time. Lord is a title, Lord and Lady and Dukes, and they have we get these words like that. So we're borrowing kind of a weird royal language, so Lord and Lady, right? But by Lord, by common use, Lord means controller, right, and master. Like our Lord and we say Lord and Master or something like that. Lord and Savior. He's the one who controls us and guides us and we give deference to. But so Ishwari is the Ishwara. She's the controller, right, of Jagatāṁ, of this whole world. So everything that happens is by her. She's making it all happen. It's happening by her direction. She's the one directing it. She's a controller of it. It has a more subtle technical definition of having a fivefold functions. Ishvara is a fivefold functions, and that is of creation, generation or creation, the substance, destruction or transformation, right? And then, what are the two terms? There's the covering and revealing. I think I argue in my own head these points all the time. What's that? Anugraha means to reveal. It means an act of grace of a real, and I forget just now. But basically, so it's like she creates, sustains, and destroys, covers and reveals. Right? Covers means puts us into Maya. Right? You can say, if to use the Vedantic language. Right? We don't. What does that mean? Although she creates, sustains, and destroys. What is she creating, sustaining, destroying? Herself, only her own nature, right? So she's doing everything, and she is everything that she's doing everything to, and we don't see it, right? So that's called ignorance, right? We don't see what's obvious. Actually, it's the most obvious thing. She makes it that we don't see it. Maybe it's a conscious thing, because in order to keep this horrible or wonderful play going, you have to cover some, in a Zoom meeting, you have to mute certain mics and this, you have to do some things to make it all work, right? Or she does it consciously in order to keep it going, or that's just one of the things that happens, and she's everything that happens and doing everything that happens. So we don't see but through an act of grace, she also reveals. So we can see what's actually there. We do get, sometimes we just general moments of aha, right? Just see what she's doing, or little glimpses of perception and right. But there's also the big unveil that the sages talk about, right? The liberation or enlightenment or some major perception, breakthrough of perception, like we know is she's the one who does that too. Right, so by parameśvarī, she's the greatest Lord, or the greatest controller, the greatest mistress, the greatest, the supreme. Para means like that, but another way we can take this para is that she's actually. We have many ideas. We're all small controllers, and we do that. We can create, sustain, and destroy, and cover up and forget and cause people to forget and reveal and understand. We have little versions of that, right? And so we're little Ishwaras, right? And there's all kinds, and there's Ishwaras above us. We have our bosses and our mom and dad, and the guru and the church and government and laws and the president and the prime ministers and chief ministers, apparently, right, going on right now. All this type of, you can see all these things. We have all these things that seem to control us, and they do. At one level, they have control. We have some control, some sense of control. They have some control. So Pada Ishwara means she's the one who has way more control. We have small, tiny independence. She has infinite independence. We have tiny creativity. She has infinite. That's one saying Pada, but Pada could also mean that we're all doing, but she's doing. Right? There are people above us, but she's those people. We have some sense of freedom, but she's that sense of freedom. Not just the greatest among. Para means the greatest among the category, but she's the thing itself that's playing all the parts in a certain way. She's a transcendent, the real, the in that sense supreme. Para, and so Jagatāṁ parameśvarī. Jagatāṁ parameśvarī. She is the supreme ruler of the perceivable universe. You can say. And then Jagat-bandhu. That's a very nice name. Jagat-bandhu. Bandhu here means friend. Right? Jagat-bandhu. So this is a very beautiful name. I like this name, Jagat-bandhu. Friend of the world. Right? That's a beautiful. So if you think world is just like, oh, she's, by saying friend of the world or friend of the universe, it's also saying the universal friend. She's our, we could say like that. She is, what's a friend? I mean, it's like, it's a well-wisher, loving well-wisher, right? And that should be our bare minimum behavior standard, is a loving well-wisher. The problem is that we don't even have the bare human is being a well-wisher. We should want everybody to be happy, right? And of course, that's even people to whom we're not friends. Should at least want even our enemies to be happy, right? People that are enemies in that sense, people that they don't have our best wishes, like that. Not that we don't succeed in that, right? But be happy. You would like be happy somewhere else. Type something. We can also be like that. We wish you well, but not around here. It's also like we want. Not that we because you're not our friend, we must destroy you or wish you ill. Because you're not our friend, we don't want to have anything to do. I don't want to be your friend, right? But I wish you well. That's bare minimum. So friend is something different than that. I wish you well, but somebody to whom we have a loving connection. I remember there's friend is not just like, of course, who knows how karma works, but we don't consciously choose our family, right? We're kind of forced into it. You got to love your uncle because he's your uncle. So you have you're born with a relationship that hopefully goes well. But friends seems, maybe we don't choose our friends, I don't know. But I think we kind of choose it's one of the few loving relationships we can actually choose. That's why friends are sometimes closer than family. Although you could say blood's closer than friendship. Yeah, it's true like that. But it's not a conscious, you choose to love somebody. Not, I mean, you know what I mean? Love is a different thing, but you choose whom you love in a certain sense. Maybe not really, but it's something. But so it's the point is that it's intimate. It's not general, right? So by calling Jagan-mātā is that her love and well-wishing for us is is intimate. It's not just general. It's not philosophical, right? It's just not. It's conscious, right? That she's a friend. She's our friend, but she's not just our friend, right? Swami Chaitanya told the story of one sadhu who was attendant of Holy Mother Shadar Devi, who is definitely the friend of the Divine Mother incarnated, right? So, just like Kātyāyanī, we can say she's the Supreme Goddess took a human form. So. She asked, what was the difference between Holy Mother and your... Swami Chaitanya says, I have a mother, right? I know my mother. So she's, it's like she's just a woman. Of course, he was playing a little bit of trying to milk. You have to know, I say milk comes out. As he's trying to milk something out, which is also a mother image, right? Trying to pull some juice out of this sadhu. He says, like, I had a mother, and so she has a mother. What's so special about Holy Mother? We believe that she's the goddess and she married Sri Ram, so we bring it into, it's an accepted belief system in the Ramakrishna tradition. Of course, we have to accept Holy Mother and like that. But what made her different than my mother or your mother? Right. And you said that, I may be getting these story a little bit wrong. Either he said that he was like this or he asked her. This monk asked Holy Mother herself, what's the difference between you and like that? And he says, well, we see, like, my mother has so much love for me, right? I mean, a mother naturally, naturally, sometimes things don't go natural. There's things that nature, it's also within nature not to go well, so it doesn't always happen this way. So, but generally we can say mothers have a selfless, or the highest example of a selfless love for us. Right, willing to do anything and goes through almost any struggle for our benefit. He says, we saw in her that she had that same affection, that same towards everybody. Right, that's the thing. She was like Jagan-mātā. She's a mother, but or jagad-bandhu is another way of saying it. She had that direct, personal, selfless love for not just her own children. Of course, she didn't have physical children, but we have family. But we have our friends that we have that love for, and we have our family that we have a version of that love for, right? But imagine somebody who has that same love, that same towards everything. And then she said, I have the same love. She even said, I have the same love for animals, for plants, for insects, right? For everything, right? For everything that's moving, everything in this world, in her world, right? And then she says, where is that being in this world that doesn't have my love and affection, right? It's like that could be a very sad situation if there's any such being. Right. So Jagan-mātā, so she's not just she's a friend of the world. She's a well-wisher, but directly, not generally. The problem is that we use these terms, especially you have 1,000 such terms, and we talk these are general, large principles, and they are, but they're especially these little clusters. Jagat is a very large thing, but Mata is a very specific thing. Bandhu is a very specific thing. Ishvara is a very specific thing. When Sri Ramakrishna said, you have to think the Divine Mother Kālī is my mother. Think of God as your mother. He says, not as your stepmother. Stepmother is somebody you have a form. No, okay, there's a relationship. We have to accept that relationship, right? It's been arranged. Right? Not by me, but somebody has arranged. It's not my stepmother. So I have to think, you give respect, you expect minimum affection appropriate to the relationship, Hopefully it goes well, right? Or she's not your godmother. I forget even the word, stepmother, godmother. It's like there's like symbolic of her mother or like my mother. No, she's your literal mother. Right, just like it's like, think that she's your mother, not your godmother, stepmother, motherly character for you. She's your mother, right? And therefore, when you have that relationship, that's a very intimate relationship that allows for intimate relationship. An intimate relationship allows for intimate relationship, right? So in terms of, you can make demands on her, you can complain to her. You can fight with her. All the things that happen between friends does not mean you don't fight. Friends are not friends you don't demand. Actually, in a certain sense, one Swami of our youth, he used to say that actually I have no problem. They love me very much. I can take advantage of them. He said, right? We can just show up. No problem. They love me very much because we have such relationship that we can be inconvenienced to them. Right, so the relationship is so deep that you can actually be very rude to them. It's a strange thing, right? You can't do that to like a normal an acquaintance. You'd lose the relationship, right? But some friends are so deep, or some family is so deep that like it or not, I'm coming over. Like it or not, you're helping me. Like it or not, we're having this. Like it or not, we're having this conversation, Kālīpada. You can force it, because you have the relationship to justify it, So I'm thinking along these lines. The intimate relationship allows for a very intimate relationship, right? And Sri Ramakrishna's devotional practice toward the Divine Mother that he taught is based upon this. You can, cry to her with a cry. Make your demands on her. I mean, it shouldn't take. The problem is that we should be children of the Divine Mother. We shouldn't be childish. We can make this into childishness, but we should be children of the Divine Mother, right? Friends of the Divine Mother. Jagan-mātā, Jagadātri. How are we doing? Okay. Jagan-mātā, parameśvarī, jagad-bandhur, friend of the universe, a friend of all. Also, Jagat here by saying she's a friend of everyone. Jagat means everyone, right? But also we just define Jagat as the perceivable universe, right? Which another thing is we take if friend means a personal, loving view of that with your friend. I mean, it's not just everyone in the universe. It's not Sarva Jiva Bandhu or something like that, the friend of all living beings or something. She's a friend of the universe itself, which is interesting. I don't know if this was the intention of the name, right? But thinking about it is that what does God feel about the world that God has made, right? Not just the people that God populates the world with, right, out of herself, right? But the world itself, right? She has a loving relationship and attitude towards it. I think could be another way. By Jagat here meaning the world itself, and the moving, vibrating, expressed world of name and form, of birth, death, the world of birth and death, all the all the things that we would say, oh, these are bad things, right? The world of duality or multiplicity, right? The one has a loving relationship towards, a loving view towards the many, which is only the one, is a way of looking at it, perhaps, right? Jagad-dhātri. This is a name I like, Jagadātri. So this is just like in the previous name that she has 4 arms and 10 arms and 18 arms, right? So Kātyāyanī has 4 arms and 10 arms as per tradition, right? Jagadātri is itself a particular goddess. Jagadātri, who has 4 arms. I don't think we have her up. We put her up there's a special puja for Jagadātri puja like we do. It's interesting that Jagadātri her worship is as a separate goddess, like Kātyāyanī. Her worship is also primarily in Bengal and Orissa. These are where she's most popular, and her puja comes in during puja season. Bengal has puja season, right? It's like we have our Christmas season. It's like we have Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. Like we can as soon as the holidays are over, then we can get onto business or something. We have the season, right? So Bengal has puja season. It starts with Kālī puja, right? In usually October, and then and then Durga puja. First Durga puja. Then Kālī puja. Durga puja is first.
Yes.
Is it?
Well, first is Vishwakarma.
No. I'm just talking about Durga puja and Kālī puja.
Durga puja.
Durga puja. Then yeah. So, but Lakshmi puja in that sense is absorbed in Durga puja. I'm just talking the 3 main, the way it's conceptualized in the tantric scripture that mentions this. I'm not making it up. Is there's Durga puja, Kālī puja, and Jagadātri puja, which comes later, right? And so Durga puja, you can see she's a very, and we've Mahisha, the demon is Mahisha, right? Who's a represents lust and anger and animality and this type passionate type of. I mean, her form is it was 10 arms, very dynamic, right? And so it's seen as a form of the goddess that counteracts rajas, right? So in this sense, in Kālī puja, it's a form of the goddess that counteracts tamas. Kālī means darkness itself, right? And then Jagadātri puja, the form of the goddess that counteracts sattva. She's a sattvic rupa, and she but of course, why we have to fight sattva? Turns out we also have to fight sattva a little bit, So rajas and tamas we know, darkness, ignorance, inertia. These are things we know that we have to go beyond, right? And then rajas is less obvious, but this is like our activity and passion and momentum and movement. We know that we can get out of hand and lose balance, right? But sattva guna is peacefulness, knowledge, wisdom, goodness, comfort, clarity. These are sattvic qualities, right? Restfulness, right? So we don't usually consider them obstacles, right? But we don't consider them obstacles because we're being tossed. Our problem is not too much sattva guna. Most of our problems, maybe, I don't know about you, I don't want to superimpose my own issues on you, but most of my problems are rajaguna and tamaguna, right? As ignorance and passion, or ignorance and like this, right? So a lot of our sadhanas are designed to overcome our inertia and our ignorance, right? And our mindlessness and activity and like this, right? But sattva guna is also considered, it's a material quality, but it has a lot of illumination, right? And so sattva is also, so Sri Ramakrishna gave a beautiful, Sri Ramakrishna gives a perfect story for every point. It says the 3 thieves, a man is walking on a forest path on the way between villages, and 3 thieves attack him, right? And one of them goes, let's kill him to steal his money. They steal his money, and then one of them says, kill him. And we'll clear him. We'll just kill him right here. Just kill him and take his money. And the other one goes, why kill him? Right? If we kill him, we're already thieves. We kill him, then we're going to get the punishment for murder is way more than the punishment for stealing, right? So we'll just bind him up. So they bind him all up and leave him there, right? And they leave. And after a little bit, he's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? After a little while, the third thief comes back, and he unties him, right? And says, sorry, brother, we're thieves. You have to forgive us. That's how we make our living, right? Thieves have their dharma. Our dharma is to steal, right? So, but go on this path, right? If you go, you're a little bit, hope you're not too hurt. Go on this path. If you walk on this path, you'll get to your home. There's a village there. They'll help you. From there, you'll know how to get home. Right? I go, oh, thank you. Come with me, right? We'll honor you. We'll give you. No. If I go into that town, they'll catch me. I'm a thief, right? So this is an example that tamas is destroying, rajas is binding, and sattva is freeing, illuminating, right? But it's still material quality. It cannot go. It cannot free. It cannot. It's not free. It's freeing, right? So Sri Ramakrishna used this term, Shuddha Sattva, pure Sattva. Pure Sattva, that is a self. That's pure. That's transcendental, right? Sattva is close, but still material quality. Why did I go? Oh, the three goddesses, Jagadātri and Sattva Guna. So in the Devi Bhagavatam, there is a section called the Devi Gita, right? The 700 verses of the Divine Mother's teachings about spiritual life. And she talks about bhakti. Sri Ramakrishna also talks about bhakti in the three gunas, the three in rajas, tamasic, and sattvic. So in the Devi Bhagavatam, she herself mentions actually the only way to attain ultimate freedom, they call it pada bhakti, supreme devotion, right? And that enlightenment, that sattvic devotion, right, or is not pada bhakti, right? Sattva guna isn't liberation, and even devotion, sattvic devotion, isn't pada bhakti, supreme devotion, right? But you can only get to supreme devotion through sattvic bhakti, as he says, right? You can only get through enlightenment you can only get liberation from sattva, from sattva, not from rajas. To liberate yourself from rajas means you're sattvic, not you're free. To liberate yourself from tamas means you're rajasic, not free, right? So it's still important, but it can be a bondage. And so there's a Vaishnava Tantra that describes this term, we haven't talked about this in a long time, the anartas. That within the heart, this is in devotional literature, it says that God is the only reality, right? And the soul's nature is to long and love and relate to that God, right? And yet here we are in conscious ignorance of God without, so we have things clouding our minds, or to use devotional language, dirty things within the heart, unwanted things, anarta, better things, anarta means not desired in a certain sense. Unwanted things, maybe better. Rather than giving a value judgment as being filthy and sinful and like that. Just things that aren't serving us, you could say, right? We have unwanted things in the heart. I have 6 minutes. I shouldn't have started the anarta talk, but anyways, I've gotten a little bit into it. So of course, we have big things like anger and jealousy and pride and hatred and prejudice and this selfishness. And, these are big things that everyone would say, these are things we have to overcome, or these aren't things that are serving us, that hopefully spiritual life will destroy. Rajas and like Durga and Kālī destroys those things in the stories, right? But we also have subtle things, sattvic things that are also blocking us, right? Like, for instance, it's in this text that I'm remembering, this Vaishnava tantric text, it's describing, I'm forgetting the name right now, otherwise I'd cite it, but I remember the point, that let's say you start spiritual life, you start chanting, you start devotional practices like that. What happens? Or you start yoga. What happens? Well, you get healthy, often, right? Your diet gets better and your body gets better, and your environment gets clean, your food becomes clean, right? And maybe some prosperity and these type of things can manifest as you clean up your karmas, right? And so that's wonderful, right? It's like, and so you think, oh, the purpose of spiritual life and yoga and chanting is a healthy body, a clean mind, a healthy and view towards the environment and rude relationships with people. All those are good. These are all sattvic things, right? But they don't go far enough, right? They're still a block. They're ultimately they're subtle anarthas. We don't even know that they're things that we need to go beyond, right? Just a comfortable life. We want everybody to have we want even our enemies to live a comfortable life, right? But a parent doesn't only want their child to live a comfortable life. They want their child to thrive. And sometimes that means suffering. Sometimes that means, so it's not just be healthy and happy and prosperous. Nothing bad ever happen to. Of course, we want nothing bad ever to happen to people, but not at the expense of personal growth. Sometimes seemingly negative things or difficult things can be liberating, can be maturing. So even our attachment to sattva can stop us from. So Jagadātri, the point is Jagadātri is a form of this trinity of goddesses that is believed in the tantras, presented, that fights subtle things, right? And who? Does anybody remember who the demon that she kills? Mahisha kills a buffalo, right? Jagadātri, you remember? Kills an elephant, right? And of course, this is bigger, but not bigger. It's actually elephant is symbolic of the mind. So this is not the big there's not a world destroying monster or the grossest part of us that we have to overcome, like Mahishasura or Shumba and Nishumba. This is subtle things in the mind that have to be controlled, right? So Jagadātri. So that's the deity of Jagadātri, Jagadānanda. There's a beautiful prayer. May Goddess Jagadātri, the Divine Mother, who sustains the universe, fill our hearts with joy, vigor, fortitude, love, compassion, and selfishness, so we can control our minds and senses, which run wild like an elephant, and walk on the path of righteousness and spirituality. This is our prayer. This is one of the slokas that's in the Jagadātri Puja manuals. Puja, it's one of the mantras, right? So may she give us, may she fill our hearts with joy, vigor, all these auspicious things, love, compassion. Why? So that we can control the mind and senses. Sattvic, right? We have to. Now it's a more subtle, not to kill the demons, but to purify and control our internal faculties, right? So we can have a higher realization. So, but what does Jagadātri mean? I'm definitely over late. Datri means to hold or support, right? So Jagad-bandhu, friend of the world, a friend of of the universal manifestation. Jagan-mātā, the mother of the world. Jagada-ishwarī, parameśvarī, right? Now Jagadātri, she's the one. She has an individual cult, forearm goddess killing an elephant. We know that, right? But she has her meaning is a general name for the Divine Mother as the one who supports Jagat. Our whole talk on Jagat, right? She's a substratum for it, right? So we mentioned when you have a changing that's put against the unchanging. So the support is what supports the unchanging support of the changing, not just a source of it, not just loving friend of it, not just a controller of it, but the substratum that use So one way we can think of it is, a possible way of thinking of it is like a wave is something moving, water and movement, right? But the ocean is the support of the water, of the wave, right? So she's both Jagat and Jagadātri. She's Jagat, the moving manifestation of the waves of the earth, is one way of thinking, and as well as the substratum that holds it all up, the substratum from which it comes, right? The unchanged, which is the ocean itself. But there's something shared between the ocean and the wave, and that's water, right? That's the thing, that water and wave, ocean and wave are only water. So that's the whole point of this, is that the unchanging, the changing, the conscious and that which is conscious of, the creator and creation, however you want to think of this, right? They're related intimately as controlled, mother, child, source. I don't know what the sourced. I don't know what the word is. That I guess sourced. Like friend and befriended, like affectionate and object of affection. But the point is that they're both the same thing, right? Jagat and Jagadātri are like wave and ocean is both water, And that's the ultimate. This is why we have 1,000 names or thousands of names of one reality. Just like we have thousands and thousands of experiences and people and forms and and manifestations in the Jagat, right? Well, without losing the commitment of a recognition of the one behind, the one within, the one Jagat and Jagadātri. But then the final name, which will end just to finish off this verse, Jagadānanda-kāriṇī. Jagadānanda. So she's the Kāriṇī means a cause, or the so he's the cause of what? The cause of Jagadānanda, right? So this means, so we have to play. So the obvious meaning is in this manifested world of Jiv Jagat, right? Of jivas and their worlds, right? Right. All happiness, all bliss, all blissful experience. She's the cause of that, right? No, so that's a simple way. Like everything all the joys we experience in our regular manifested world, right? In our normal experience, right? She's the cause of that joy, that ananda, right? So that's a simple. Even so, like, so one. We have an old. We haven't seen in a long time. Shankaracharya, or the tantric. Remember that tantric Guruji from Tennessee, Shankaracharya. I haven't thought of him in a long time, but he used to say. He said like that every blissful experience, right, is not caused by the object. It's an occasion for bliss to come, right? You know that you eat ice cream. The ice cream, there's no bliss in ice cream, right? Right. Bliss is within you. Bliss exists, right? The ice cream, well, some ice cream may be more blissful than. Or maybe we'll just say, maybe we'll be careful and say some ice cream is better equipped to bring out the bliss of the experience, right? So that all of our experiences we're only experiencing all happiness, all aesthetic experience and emotional experience, especially joyful experience, all bliss, joy. Of course, bliss is a high definition, but we'll start at the simple thing. In all the bliss of the Jagat-Ananda. Right, that is, she's the cause of that. We're the things. If she's the only thing, right, then we experience that thing. We're experiencing her. She's the cause of those experiences, you know. And so we get happiness in anything. We're actually reveling. There it is, reveling in her, right, right. And we're also seeking her. Right, that's the thing, is that when we're seeking happiness in anything, and basic psychological, sociological definition of human beings is we're pleasure-seeking creatures, right? And then a little more psychological, there were meaning-seeking creatures. Then we get into philosophy and religion and things like that, right? And society, right? So pleasure-seeking and meaning-seeking are just a gross and subtle aspect of the same seeking. We're trying to find happiness. We're trying to find satisfaction. We're trying to find completion, right? We're trying to find the one in the many. We're trying to find the Jagadātri in the Jagat, right? So, and in all these experiences, it is that. What else? If we're experiencing anything, even if we're experiencing the most gross, to use a judgmental category, a gross, low class enjoyment, right? What do we experience if it's only her? We're experiencing her, but not in a very satisfying way. That's the problem. Is that certain types will not lead. They bring addiction, or they bring disappointment. You know, that's often the case, right? So but she is the cause of all bliss in the Jagat, right? But then playing with the name, she's the universal cause of bliss, right? She gets the Jagadānanda means like the supreme, you know, the supreme bliss, right? Jagadānanda-kāriṇī, and so. Also, Kāriṇī has an idea like that she's not only the cause, but because she's the cause, we're searching for the cause. When the bliss we're looking for in the Jagat, the Jagat's looking for, Jiv Jagat looking for, is her. She's the one we're looking for, right? We don't have to already over time, but at one point in the first few verses of the Sundar Lahari of Shankaracharya, right? This beautiful hymn. It's described because we know Ma here she has a boon giving boons and fearlessness, right? Boons and Boons and fearlessness, right? In it, and in Lalita, there's also a form. You see her hands like this. But it says in that, she's not giving boons. Right? We have, Ma, please make us happy. Please give us a good job. Please make our relationship go well. She's actually, but the Lalita, of course, Lalita's way better than all the other goddesses. That's what she's saying, because she doesn't give boons. Of course, Lalita is Kālī, and she's describing the exact same hand, right? She's not actually giving boons, although we think of it this way. She's pointing to her feet by doing this, right? It's an interesting. This is a poetic. The Sundar Lahari is a highly poetical text that you have to understand a lot of things to generate the sentiments, the complicated Indian aesthetic sentiments it's built into it, right? But it comes in a particular place where it's a very emotional crescendo verse, right? But she's not giving boons. She's pointing all the things we ask for God for, right? She's showing what we're looking for in those things. We're looking for her feet. If we surrender, what we're looking for is her, right? And what we're looking for, we need this. We want happiness. We want relationship. We want success. We want things to go better. We want health. We want people to stop wars to stop happening, or whatever the thing is. What we're searching for is her. So this Jagadānanda-kāriṇī, she's the bliss that she's the real source of bliss. And all the things that we get, if she gives us those things, she's only temporarily giving us some temporary satisfaction, right? And so Lalita, as the supreme goddess of that text, she's supreme because she's not just giving us, she's not fulfilling our material desire, she's giving us our real desire, right? What we really want, Every time I say that, I start with a Spice Girls song, but I'm not going to. It's amazing. 33 years of chanting mantras, right? And I don't even like the Spice Girls, and that's the song that comes to me instead of mantras and slokas. You can go for it. I lose my reputation if I say it on this thing. There's a song. It was a part of it. It became popular in a time when we paid attention to popular songs, so we couldn't avoid it. Now we don't have as much access to what the latest version of it is. Perhaps I'm dating myself a little bit too much by pointing that out. But anyway, so these are the names for today. Also, one thing I don't really have time to mention, but I will mention a little philosophical point, is that she who has 4 arms, she who has 6 arms, or 8 arms, she who has 10 arms, she who has 16 arms or 18 arms, she who is Kātyāyanī, who has her own cult, she who is Kālī, she who is Lalita, she who is Jagadātri, all these different, there could be us describing different aspects of the one goddess, or they're describing different goddesses, both, right? But by describing different goddesses, they're saying that they're different goddesses are really one goddess. That's another, not all aspects of one goddess, but and so in a little bit philosophical, theological terms, you have a universal principle and a specific example, right? And so, like, an example is like a triangle. Triangle is an abstract principle. It's the thing itself, right? But whenever you want to give it an example of a triangle, you point to a triangle, not to triangleness, right? It's like, so that you have the absolute, universal, or principle, and then you have a specific example. And so all the different aspects of the goddess and all the different goddesses, right? We can point to, Kātyāyanī and Kālaratri and Jagadātri and Ma Kālī and Ma Sharada and Ma Radha and all these different names and aspects and forms and stories and histories and theologies and religions like that. But these are just things we can point to. What we're pointing to, by pointing to the specific, we're trying to point to a universal principle. But without an example, a specific, the universal can't be embodied. Right, this becomes like we all know what a triangle is, but show me a triangle, you show me a triangle, not triangleness, right? So similarly, when we say Devi, God, goddess, the divine mother, we have to point to something, right? But conscious, like, we're pointing to an example of something that's transcends the specific example, but yet is embodied in it fully. So anyway, we'll leave it there. That's my ended with a little bit philosophical. That's actually what I want to talk about, but these names get the better of me. Jai Ma Kālī. Thank you for your kind attention and your patience. I'm 10 minutes late. Hari Om.